All right. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I've got a great guest, Matt Swalley from Omneky. What is Omneky? Well, it's an AI platform that integrates into your marketing flow. The system allows you to use AI to create new, exciting types of advertising, to upgrade the advertising that you currently have, and most importantly, to do A/B testing against AI to learn about what makes people click on your ad, respond to it, inquire, fill out contact us forms, and it works independently from you and with you to create improved advertisements that are going to be more impactful and more efficient. Who doesn't want that in their business? I think this conversation is so interesting because it goes to show the utility that is coming with AI applications and how it will dramatically change certain roles and functions that we perform inside our organizations. Okay, without further ado, here we go. Matt with Omneky. All right, so today I have Matt Swalley from Omneky.
You got it right.
I got it right, didn't I, Matt? And he's the co-founder and chief business officer of Omneky. And we are talking today about AI automation in the realm of advertising. Matt, glad to have you on the show. And it's cool to find the Pittsburgh connection. Although I love to say Pittsburgh's a great place to be from. But you're there now, and you know it's a good place to raise kids.
I love it here. And Derek, thank you so much for having me on the show. And artificial intelligence, what a topic to speak about. I mean, it's a little bit, you hear a lot about it right now.
You really do. I mean, it is definitely the top of the filter, I think, for just about everybody. And I know that the audience, the folks that are listening to this show, a lot of you are executives. You're trying to figure out how this is going to apply to you. And I think Omneky has some interesting approaches to this, right? When we talk about automation inside businesses so many times, I'm talking about trying to mine out the inefficiency of your organization. And one of the things that's pretty inefficient is testing marketing messaging. Because, yes, you have, for every success, there's 10 failures. So how do you all work? How did this whole thing get started? Has your background been in advertising, Matt? Maybe you can just tell us your story.
Sure.
And then we can chat from there.
Omneky is an artificial intelligence powered advertising platform. I'll give you the high level view of Omneky. We'll go into more details though. We take real-time performance data from all the different advertising channels. Your customers' attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. It's actually getting scary shorter and shorter with the younger generations out there. And Omneky looks at the data for why people are clicking or buying products. And you can use a tool called computer vision that helps you quantify, like, across all your data, why are people clicking and buying? And you can get more granular on audience. And we'll talk a little bit about the 4 different metrics we look for personalization later. But then we generate tons of creative for multivariate testing or figuring out what are the messages that work the best. It's a constant feedback loop of collecting data, launching new creative in meaningful, real, like a much closer time frame. We got it down to hours or days that used to take months, the creative process. Now, my background, I actually was a marketing degree back in the day, but I joined from 13 years at AT&T. I was at a large corporation. I always had entrepreneurship in my blood, and I moved all around. Like you said, we're new to Pittsburgh. Omneky's headquarters is actually in San Francisco. A lot of our team's there, but I lived in Dallas, Atlanta, Southern California, all with AT&T. I was at headquarters and did a lot of different roles, transitioned to 15 different jobs in 13 years, really, where I was leading sales teams. The old days were picking up the phone, calling people, sending emails. Sales has changed. So digital has to be the base for everyone's sales now, which is, I have a unique perspective because my teams have all done the direct sales component of it. And you flip the script and you bring people to you and you figure out how to improve efficiencies, lower funnel, and giving better demos, understanding your customers better through digital ads, and you can have a much leaner sales team. But I did the AT&T thing. I met the founder and CEO, Hikari Senju, who's a Harvard computer science grad. This is his second startup. He exited the first one, an education startup. He started it in 2018, knowing that data would be the key to unlocking AI. So early 2020s, the first customers Omneky had, we were using GPT-1, then GPT-2, constantly improving efficiencies and workflow for marketing for years now.
Long before the December 15th turn on of ChatGPT, when it finally hit most of our radar. Oh my gosh,
Derek, we can talk about this part too. So the knowledge of the customer base out there has flipped. So right around last year, people would come to us and they'd be like, how are you using AI? And then around December, January, people were coming to us because they were testing every single tool. And then even the CEO and C-suite are using these tools daily. So they're becoming really, really knowledgeable about where you can improve efficiencies. And so you saw a huge mindset shift of the knowledge base of who's coming to you, where they're testing new tools. We've had so much interest in Omneky where we've been able to really listen to the customer sets from enterprise, mid-market, and small businesses. What are the major problems they have? And then we've been building alongside that over the past, couple years. So one of the big changes in advertising over the years is personal information is becoming more and more restricted. People have to really keep safety's a key initiative. I mean, our three major things are speed, scale, and safety is our third big part of our value prop today. And so we always say 30% of your budget needs to be towards testing new concepts, testing new audiences. The four major business problems that we keep hearing over and over again is you need personalized creative by audience, which is your ideal customer profiles, demographics potentially. Then there's geography, so localization, languages. Third is your products, services, or SKUs, and fourth is your platform. So, the different platforms have different dimensions, different types of content. You want to go target and retarget your customers across those different dimensions, move them through the sales process.
So how do companies engage with you when it comes, and what all platforms are you on, I guess, is the first question. What is it, just that 15 to 60 second content that you can help optimize and improve the process on, or does it get into that long form as well?
We have customers across every type of concept. So we've automated a lot of the basic image tools. Like AI will help us with image, it will help us with copy, it will help us with video transcriptions, it will help us with storyboarding for videos. We do it all because video still is 60 to 70% of your testing has to be video. Video catches the attention span of consumers. And so we're continually automating video wherever we can as well to make it faster and more meaningful for customers. But we have...
And go ahead.
Yeah,
Meta,
please Google, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, Pinterest, Snapchat. We have integrations with all those. We're building out Trade Desk and some of the programmatic ones. We've done connected television. So really, anywhere your customers are going, we want to help you get there.
And are you acting as a full on agency in this process, or are you bolting on to what the agencies are offering?
Our model today, 50% of our customers, we have a customer success team that does media buying and management. With the other 50%, we are an analytics tool that's a single pane of glass that gives creative insights. You can also do AI generation for copy and text, creative generation for empowering human creativity with our AI creative brief tool, and then actually generating the ads. So, and then after an agency approves an ad in our platform, it automatically goes into the platform, like Meta, Google, TikTok, through integrations. So they just go pick it up there and then do the media buy. So 50% we're doing media buying, 50% we're not. Long term, we see us being the creative content scaling section backed by data, less media buying.
Sure. That makes total sense. So, so what are some of the things that you're seeing in this? What are you learning from the AI? Is it speed to the final message? Is that the intent? Or are you learning something else about the buying habits and the trends and the demographics?
Well, I could say one thing is 99% of advertising is still too general for what's needed. So that's why it's such a huge business problem, right? Because no matter what customer comes to us,
it's so good.
They don't have, they have all these different verticals that they're focused on. They're still doing more generalized ads. So that's like your instant way. If you can go personalize creative for the different audiences or different verticals you have, that's an immediate uptick that you can roll out very, very quickly with AI. I mean, you can go scan the website plus the data plus CRM data, first party data, and pull out, what customer info. And then you can go immediately generate an entire creative brief that gives you 10 different storylines for a specific vertical where you were doing too general before. Then you take those creatives, you go load them into a platform, and you see what's working, and then you iterate off of what's working.
I love that. Now, are you, in that sense, a lot of the examples that I found online and on your website were more, they weren't like a talking head, right? They were a little bit more graphic rich. They were a little bit more, they fit a little bit more into the sort of meme style that I had, become accustomed to online. Is that what you're seeing as more of a success, or is that just happen to be the examples that I picked up on?
That is not always our go-to. So we have customers across, lots of different verticals, but we test we test 30% of always is testing. So 70% iterating off what we're seeing today. I mean, the average shelf life of an ad is about 6 weeks. You want to spend that other 30% testing brand new concepts, finding new winners constantly.
Can you give me an example of like something like what's a story that you tell, like a success story that you've seen with this?
Oh my gosh. So we have been fine tuning. We have our own AI data engineering team. They're one of the problems with AI you'll hear over and over again. It's learning from the public domain. It's scanning billions of parameters. So a lot of times it will produce similar stuff all the time if you're asking it a question. So it really comes down to giving the AI the right prompts for different situations. But I've had multiple occasions right now in a sales demo that we plug in some information on a customer, and it comes up with some headlines. The customers are just like, damn, that is amazing. Like, we are going to use that right away, like on the spot. I don't want to say it because one's a customer name that's in it. But
no, totally understand.
On the spot in a sales demo. They're like, yes, this is a headline we would use. This is amazing. And then sometimes we'll provide it, the creative brief, but we want them to sign on as a long-term customer, of course, come back to us for everything else.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I talk about it. My last book, Adapt Agility, I have a copy of it right here. That name came from OpenAI. I literally had it read the book and I said, what would you name the book? And I said, and you can come up with any word you want. It doesn't have to be anything that's in the, current Webster's dictionary. And that's the word it came up with. So, and it completely summarizes the entire book. So it does go to show that, could I have gotten there? Probably, with a bunch of whiteboards and 6 or 7 people, and a lot of Red Bull, we probably could have gotten there maybe, but AI is able to go through those iterations all very, very quickly and come up with something that you and I just couldn't do.
Especially with a lot of different customers, right? Like, I think I read somewhere, coding, people are able to code now with AI. It's going to continue getting better. So the barrier to entry for coding stuff is getting lower. It's still that technical expertise is probably the most needed skill out there, like for demand, but it's coming down. Now business knowledge becomes this huge advantage if you understand the right questions to ask about people's business, because then you can prompt AI to do things that others have no clue how to do. So business knowledge, understanding, asking the right questions, and then feeding that into AI engines becomes the absolute differentiator for the future.
I love that. And that's, it's something that I've been talking a lot about here recently, particularly in my consulting firm, where we're talking with customers about automating their process. And let's be honest. I mean, if you're not in Silicon Valley, if you're a mid-market business in that, 20 million to $1 billion range, you probably don't have a single source of truth data. You probably have very divergent systems. I mean, we're working with a client right now. In the first call, we identified 50 different divergent systems. Just like looking at the credit card statement, and you're like, well, we got Calendly, we got HubSpot, we got Sales, we got all of these things stacked up in there. And that is a huge disadvantage to those companies, because you cannot use AI effectively and efficiently unless you've got that single source of truth. And to your point, that business knowledge and putting that all into a single place, asking the right questions about that, opens up the opportunity for you to use a product like this. But if you don't have that, that's got to be a bit of a challenge. So does that mean that most of the organizations you're working with tend to be a little bigger, or are you finding companies that are getting their shit together when it comes to
our
data?
Current success right now is in the mid-market space, right where you're just talking, that space of $5 million to $1 billion in sales. We're building products that meet the needs of enterprise. So like Fortune 1000s, we have a lot of discussions going on, one as a customer. But if you solve those problems, you solve a lot of small businesses problems as well. So we'll see, because we know the business problem. We have to stay focused on the exact thing that we've heard now 1,000 times, work on that. And whoever solves it will be $1 trillion company. It's our goal to be that company.
Yeah, right. Well, because let's be honest, I mean, what you're doing by looking at what's the best performing and what's the worst performing is you're just giving a really, sort of, you're streamlining that process of iteration. You're streamlining that process of testing into the marketplace. And you're helping the team get more and more focused on creating messaging that's more aligned with what's going to work in the market.
The one thing too I was going to state is it's so important to still have a human in the loop right now because AI is biased. Generation 2 of these AI products is diversity. It's doing better with diversity and things as they build upon it. But
yeah,
we have a human on the loop on the Omneky side and the customer does. So our workflows kind of analyze data, generate creative. We have an approval workflow dashboard where the customer could have their marketing team, their brand team, legal team, and compliance all within the Omneky platform, putting in notes and stuff for what they want changed. Nothing goes live until that customer says this is good to go. So there's a great barrier there to make sure that everyone's comfortable. And then we are also scanning it on our side. And then finally, we built this library tool where it fully automates the onboarding process mostly. Like customer fills out their info. We pull a lot of things from wherever we can from data sources automatically. They upload their brand assets, guidelines, fonts, logos. We have an excellent starting point that's all internalized within our system as part of the workflow.
That's interesting. So you're setting the brand standards, uploading all of that information into there so that the AI can help create that based upon the personas and the customers that you have, but also staying inside and drawing inside the lines of what the brand creative profile
That's exactly
looks
right.
like.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I like that. Now, when you're talking about creating, let's talk about success in the sense of, what aspects of the process is this improving and where are there cost savings in that? Because I have to assume if you can iterate more quickly and you can come up with, deviations more quickly, you've got some opportunity there to improve not only the throughput, but also
there's the speed, scale, and safety, the three things. So one is scale, which is efficiency. We typically can supplement a creative team, a data specialist team, and potentially a media buying team in some cases. But they have huge bottlenecks. Every single company likes to work on the brand, like the top brand awareness assets, and they don't have time to be constantly iterating stuff for Meta, Google, TikTok, where people are clicking that's more personalized for their thing. So right away, like it saves tons of time. And also a lot of these companies we work with, they don't have expertise across all these different channels. So we can look and see, is TikTok performing better for this audience than Meta? Let's go ahead and move some of the budget over there. So we're optimizing within a platform and then also across platforms. And we can get a company up and running on a new platform, within a day or two.
Yeah. And that's important because I will tell you, even with my social media team, we just assumed that what worked on Facebook would work on LinkedIn, would work on TikTok, would work on Instagram. And holy crap, it is not. I mean, we had one little video snippet. It's like a 60-second video that we had put out a couple months ago. On Facebook, it got like 100,000 organic views, and I picked up like 25,000 followers. I think it got 11 views on LinkedIn and like 100 on TikTok. And I'm like, how is the same content? So some of that is algorithmic, I think, but also some of that is just not understanding the proper audience, segmentation for that. And when we did go in and start to look, and not as a AI analyst, but just as an analyst of, okay, where our audience is coming from, we found that our Facebook audience was very different. I mean, exceptionally different. They were following me more. It was a lot more overseas followers. It was a lot more people searching for entrepreneurial content. LinkedIn was not.
Sure.
And that was a little bit of a surprise to us and made us realize that we had to have different strategies.
That's definitely some of the insights. And the other thing is, if you're launching a new product or service, I mean, you put an advertising budget behind it, you can figure out what is the value prop. You can actually test things, when you're just initially launching a product, figure out if it's going to resonate with the crowd. There's a lot of different ways how you can use advertising that flips the script. Just like I said earlier, where back in the day, you'd have a full team. We see sales evolving big time. Marketing is going to start to go into the sales budget because a lot of these mid-market enterprise companies still have heavy traditional sales teams that are knocking on doors. They're making calls.
Yeah.
you can flip that script and have people come to you. And then you have to figure out how to start screening the ones that aren't a good fit for you digitally. Then it's like, that's your new optimization, is figuring out how, if these customers don't fit my current product set, how do we make sure that they get directed somewhere else until we,
That's such a good point. I wanted to let you know that my 4th book just dropped this week. It's called Adapt Agility. It's a relatively short read, and I encourage you to pick it up and read through it. Right now, we are going through a period of time where change has become constant, and we have to prepare ourselves and our business for that new reality. With AI on the horizon, you have to be able to be agile and adaptable to the trends that are coming in the marketplace. I wrote this book specifically for you and for people that are interested in AI and need to understand how to prepare themselves and their business for the amount of change we're about ready to experience. Listen, we have evolved as a species over the course of a long period of time. And there are things that are intrinsic to our biology and our genome that we cannot overcome in just a single generation or so. With AI as prevalent as it is right now, it is critical that you pick this book up. It's about $8 over on Amazon, and I would encourage you to read it a couple of times, share it with your friends, and think long and hard about how to make change inside your organization in the era of AI. Yeah, and it's something that I've been recently chatting with a couple of marketing friends about here locally, about this concept of trying to repel customers. And one of my old gigs was Fat Scooters. I was the president and COO there, and we sold this very sort of exclusive product. A lot of celebrities bought it and those kind of things. And we had this little bit of a marketing sort of sales spin that it was like, when people would push on price or anything, we're like, oh, just stop right there. You're obviously not our customer. Please step away. We're not, and people would be like, no, absolutely. You will take my, because they didn't like that idea. Right? But there is something about repulsion that I think we, particularly when it comes to social, and let's start to talk a little philosophically here too. But the reality is, Jesus ended up with what, 12 after 3 years, so and I mean, that's a pretty big impact, right? So it's like, it's not really about followers. It's really about fans and trying to figure out how to get the right people in that funnel that can convert at the end for you. And this is something that's really hard, particularly if your face is on it, because you're like, no, I care about the number of likes. So it's like, well, if the likes don't do shit, guess what? It doesn't really matter. So let's talk about that repulsion, because you sort of you brought it up.
Repulsion is a good word for it. I wouldn't use that in a sales.
You certainly wouldn't use that with customers, right?
It's in a startup, you only have so many resources, and you can't build for everyone. I mean,
that's right.
2 years into a startup, it's like you have all these opportunistic things that come to you, and you're like, you start realizing you have to get hyper focused on solving one business problem or a couple business problems for a group you can, because you don't have the resources. I mean, and we have a decent sized team now, AI data engineering team, about 70 employees, but all of our resources are still limited. The sales side, we have, three people. The customer success side, we have 6. So we can't meet with, Derek, we had days we were meeting with 8 to 10, each of us meeting with 10 people a day. Yeah. And that just is not sustainable, because you want to learn from the customers that you can sell to directly. You use that time to understand the problem, dig really deep, and then figure out what satisfies today's customers, and then what can I build that is going to be that hyperscale point here in the next 6 to 12 months. And that's what we look at every day.
But it is really true. I mean, so much of what we think about when we think about advertising is trying to get the audience, and not understanding completely that audience size. Yes, there's some importance to it, because you're thinking about filtering out through that. But the reality is, if you can get really, really targeted to the right person, the right buyer at the right exact moment where they're in that decision-making process, that's way more valuable I did a podcast for a long time, and we used to always say, we had a really small audience. We'd get 60 or 70 people a week turn in, but every week they'd get 8 or 10 leads. Well,
yeah,
guess what? If the right people are turning in, who cares? It's like, I don't care if you got 10,000 views, if you get leads,
qualified
really
leads
matters. And it sounds like that's what you're hoping. Yeah, you're hoping customers.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it goes back to when you're building a product that you can only build if you have to stay focused when you're building with resources. And we're excited, and we're building that because our ultimate goal is to do initial public offering in the next 5 years. So we have growth milestones, and we have to really get happy customers.
Yeah, you got to. Sure. So let's talk about the next 5 years, because I think in this land of AI, it's hard to have a conversation about anything more than this Friday, but because things change so fast. Where do you build this to? Like, where is this going? At some point, do you see marketing becoming exceptionally personal and just completely automated? Or, I mean, how does that transition occur over the next few years?
The technology speed right now is, and I'm sure you agree because I listen to some of your podcasts, we've never seen things move this fast ever as they are today. So, of course,
and they'll never get slower. Like, that's the other thing I think people forget about is the speed in which technology is moving right now is the slowest it will ever be in the future. And that sort of blows people's minds because that's been the trend forever. Right. We're always at the slowest point of where it's going. And I think that it's easy to forget.
The only limit is chips. Chips are the only thing that can limit it.
Right.
I mean, we see video next. We're already seeing videos out there with I love the beer commercial. If you saw that one, it was hilarious because it looks like an alien looking down at humans and what they would think a commercial is. But we see that, and there's neural. So people are hooking up neural sensors up to their brain, and it's pretty darn accurate. And then there's sensory. So I think there's some startups out there that you can carry around a camera and it catches different senses and visuals of things that the AI is learning from. So it just keeps moving more and more personalized, and it will be very, very automated. I mean, that's what we're banking on. It's for years right now.
Yeah, no, and I think I talked with Jaden Schaefer here a couple of weeks ago on the show, and we talked about how one of the big VR AR headset creators has recently filed a patent to install fMRI devices into their headsets, meaning that they literally are reading your brainwaves, translating that into data. And then what everybody's forgetting is the flip of that. If I can read your brainwaves and I can translate those into a language and I can know what you're thinking, well, then I could just reverse that stream. And now, you think about your drive into work this morning and you go, yeah, remember that Coca-Cola billboard I saw? There was no Coca-Cola billboard. That was an ad placed in your subconscious that's there. So I think that's the thing that we have to recognize is that we are moving to a world where you will only see what is relevant to you. And you get this hyper sort of focused advertising. I mean, I sort of think that's where it's going. I don't know. I mean, hell, how do you know? 5 years ago, nobody could predict it.
No. Once again, every single day, being in the middle of it as a Silicon Valley based startup, we have people from some of the biggest universities, the CEO included, and feeling like you're behind because you're reading this stuff every day. And people are building in the open. So you're on Twitter and everyone's sharing what they're learning. And it's I am living in this every second of the day. And I feel like I'm still not up to what you're reading about.
It's
wild.
It's so true. Listen, Lucas Petty, the AI daddy, and I talked about doing a daily news show about AI. And we literally thought about it for a week or two. And then we were like, this would suck because you can't prepare anything. You can't, it's well, let's, Monday, you're like, what are we going to talk about this Thursday? I don't know. Because it just depends upon what the news is Thursday morning. And that it does make it really difficult. It is almost impossible right now. And I felt like it was a huge disadvantage of the show when we moved over to AI earlier this year, is we were always 2 or 3 weeks behind the message. And then I've realized everybody's behind the message. By the time you press play, you're behind the message. All you can do is retrospectively look at what's happened in comparison to what's happening today. I mean, we have to keep learning from history, and history
and
is
there's
just
so many
week.
tools. You try to test them and share knowledge share amongst your team, and it's like there's 10 new apps every day that you can go test. You go, I try out a couple a day right now. I mean, and then you can go share it, but then you're like, am I sharing too much because no one can focus?
Right. It really is so difficult. And this is what I've been advising a lot of CEOs that I work with. You know, we've got lots of clients in that middle tier space with my consulting firm. And what we're saying to them is, look, don't get distracted right now with what AI is doing. Focus on your data. Make sure that you get to a single source of truth. And then let's start to build use cases inside your organization that have the potential to utilize AI once clear winners in each one of these categories comes out. Then once you've done that, then I can segment part of my marketing team or my workforce, and I can say, hey, look, I'll tell you what, let's try a tool like Omneky for a couple of our social channels, and let's compare that performance there versus what our team does, and then let's see how that works. And then if it does work, we can start to augment our team with technology and AI. But I do think that unfortunately this enterprise mindset of like, well, you have to have Salesforce, you have to replace everything with one central source. Yes, that's good for the data. But right now, that's hard to do because you just don't know who's going to be the clear winner.
Yeah, and I mean, you have a lot of experience with enterprise. I worked at enterprise for a long time, and like you said, it's all siloed. So you could have the systems. It's so hard to interconnect them all. So like the next step is, which we're doing as well, is building large language models that can go across those touch points and collect data. Like kind of some things we were discussing, building. Yeah,
I think that's really key. So how would someone, you know, I guess first and foremost, what kind of budget do you need? Like, we want to narrow this down. We want to repel the wrong customer here, right? And I know that that's not the right sales word, but what is the target customer that you're looking for? Like, what kind of spend are they making each month? And at what point should they consider something
the
like
small end over 10K in ad spend, 50 to 500K is really our sweet spot right now.
So 50 to 500K a month
and on ad spend,
yeah.
Or it could be more. And then we're building some custom type of applications with our AI engineers potentially that, you know, could build out your large language model that will go. You have to uncover the business problem. Like, what is the business problem at this enterprise? Right. You know, what systems can you go get that data from? And then you could build something, you know, like custom like that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm excited about seeing where this goes. It's definitely, you know, I like too that when I went and looked at everything, you're not taking the approach of, you know, for just $19.95 a month.
No.
You know, that seems like the pitch that everybody is doing in this space. I have a startup in the space, and we're like, look, you need, first and foremost, go through all of our information, find out if it's right for you. If it is, and you know it's right, then we can talk about price, because it's not a commodity, right? And this is truly about science and technology and using the right technology to solve
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the approach we're taking. And the one question, Derek, this is a side topic, is we discussed the future of work though, but do you ever start thinking about what jobs cannot be automated? I know that cannot. So then you start thinking 10 years from now, what are the places that can't be impacted by AI? Are those going to be
the bastions, right? I mean, yeah, it's like, hey, listen, I wrote this poem a while ago. Sometimes I've been screwing around with poetry, and it was something like, what was like, AI never in art nor prose with pen, but those are it was all about like the things that we said, oh, well, it will never do art. It'll never be able to do creative writing. Like, come on, can't do music. Well, guess what? That's like all the stuff it's doing now. So what are those final bastions? And I think it's a great question, because if you're going to skate to where the puck is going, you know, you're in a big hockey town there. I guess Dallas, you had a little hockey there too. But if you're going to skate to where the puck is going as an entrepreneur, you have to start thinking about what are the bastions, what are the fortresses that can't be touched by AI for one reason or another.
It's an interesting. What do you think?
Where are you going?
The thing I keep thinking about is, number one, we're doing advertising, but then there's legal, accounting, finance. I did corporate strategy for years, consulting. AI can do all this pretty well.
We're using it in our consulting firm right now. We're we're using AI to analyze. Now we're augmenting our analysts with it just yet, right? Because it is not a replacement. I last night I should have recorded it. I had an instance with ChatGPT that was so out of this world. It just could not follow anything I was saying. And it was just making shit up that was so outrageous. And I'm just like, stop. Like you're so gone. You need to reset your memory here because you're so far down this. And it's like trying to compare me to, I literally asked it to read a resume and to give me like the highlights. And it gave me this whole story about Superman and Omni-Man. And I'm like, where are you going with this? So
it hallucinated. You do have to Google Bard hallucinated when I was testing that, like pretty ridiculous, where it actually had like real things you would think about someone it was saying that weren't true. Like awards they won when I look someone up. Yeah.
Oh no, I've had that happen with me. Yeah, because I won my Emmy a couple of years last year for my TV show. It tells me all the time that I'm a Grammy winner and all sorts of things, and I'm just like, I don't.
But I know you're a Mario Brothers fan, and I see it behind there. And I love that movie, by the way. I've got Mario Brothers plumbing. So that plumbing and stuff like that are some things that are going to be really hard because you have to go to someone's house to automate the whole process, and technology can really like fix a lot, like streamline processes, but still it's going to be hard to automate that entire thing. So
it's really true. And I think I'm glad that you mentioned that because I do a lot, people that know me know I do a lot of work with construction companies and supply companies in that industry, as well as manufacturing. And that's just because a lot of the process efficiency work, it's very tangible when you're looking at a production floor and you can make a change to the speed of a machine, or you can relocate a person and you can stand there with a stopwatch and you can go, that worked. Like it's A/B testing where you can do it 10,000 times a day. So I love those industries, and they are industries. Let me just tell you, you're right. They're going to be hard for AI to penetrate. Some of that is because of the manual nature of the work. Some of it is just because the data segmentation there. I mean, these are companies where there's line items on the budget for clipboards. It's like how many, we have a client we're speaking with right now. And, we were joking. We're like, we think we've identified there's at least 3 clipboards for every employee. So there's like 1,200 clipboards that are floating around with data and information on it, handwritten data and information. And it's like, those are really hard to automate until they can figure out how to bring that.
So we can help bring customers to you, but then you can streamline the getting this dispatch, the workflow automation. But then whenever you get to someone's house, it's going to be really challenging. So.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot. There's, in every process, there's 4 aspects: input, which is what you're doing, right? The input of leads into a system; the output, the customer. We send an invoice. The outcome, which is important, particularly in marketing. I want to make sure people's outcomes are good. But what everybody seems to forget about is the throughput. Like you still have to go out there and turn the wrench. And yes, there's some robotic automation that potentially is coming, into the future. But isn't it interesting that the white collar stuff is the stuff that's being affected? I don't think any of the sci-fi writers thought that. I think they thought it was going to be,
No.
I mean, when the first robots rolled out on the GM production floor, everybody's like, this is the future. No, it's actually not. It's the opposite. It's the white hats.
I mean, autonomous driving in the next couple of years, that will be a challenge. You hear that a lot for certain skilled positions. It's a fun industry to be in and start trying to predict what's happening in the future and really try to help whoever you can.
Yes. It truly is. I think there are some areas though that we as humans should be thinking about. I don't think an AI can ever be a philosopher. I'm not sure it can ever be a true poet or write literature. I think it can write content, right? But literature's different. You start to do a little research on, I'm sure that, Plato didn't just jot things down on the back of a napkin and publish them. I mean, they thought about that stuff for years. Edgar Allan Poe probably didn't just like produce poems once a day. I mean, it's like you have to dwell on some of those things. I think it's that type of thinking that AI can do a lot of that quick thinking, but what it can't do is that slow thinking, that stuff that you built up on the basis of foundational principles and your biases. And then you come up with a flavor of something that is a little bit different and unique and creative because it comes from that. I think AI can assist in that process. As a writer, as an author, I use it all the time. I'll come up with 2 or 3 paragraphs and then I'll send it over to it. And it'll it'll make it a little generic, and it might lose a little bit of the flavor, but it'll take it from 500 words to 5,000.
Right.
And then I can read through that and edit that through. So I don't think we're doomed just yet. But I do think it's going to take the reliance upon the human component in all of these equations, and it's going to reduce it significantly.
You hear about artists, you talked about poets and everything, it writes songs, and then, some people are completely against it. Other people are taking royalties. Some artists are out there and they're like, hey, you can use it. Just pay me a royalty.
Absolutely. It's funny. I have an author friend who we've recently chatted about this, and she writes fictional books, and she has a following. And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if people could go and put in their own story, and it's written as their own personal story with them and their partner and their dog's names, and it's the new Stephen King novel about you, and it's essentially very, very personalized to you. I think that's where things are going. Instead of, and I think you guys are on the forefront of that, recognizing the personalization of the message is really, really critical, because certain things resonate with me that don't resonate with you, and certain things resonate with you that don't resonate.
Exactly. Input. I liked your 4-step. I need to go check out your writings on that.
I need to. That is actually something we're going to record some stuff on tomorrow, because I talk about this all the time, and people are like, I've never heard anybody explain it that way. And I'm like, there's only 4 pieces, right? And that throughput piece is the hardest part to automate, because it does require a physical hand many times to do those things. But all right. So if people want to find out more, Matt, about Omneky, how do they do that? What's the best approach
for
them to find you?
Go to www.omneky.com. You can schedule a demo, and in the note at the bottom, just put you heard about it, Convergence.
Heard it here. Or whatever the name of the podcast is by the time this comes out.
Right.
As you know, we're going through this rebrand. So it's like, just
say you heard it on Derek's podcast.
Everybody will know.
Or you can email me at matt@omneky.com, or look me up on LinkedIn at Matt Swalley.
Thanks for being here, Matt. I really appreciate it. This is a great conversation, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much, Derek. It was a blast.
All right. Thank you for joining me once again. And I'd really encourage you to check out the new YouTube channel if you haven't just yet. We're actually doing a lot of rebranding right now and moving a few things around. We've moved all of our new content over to my page, which is called The Process Fixer on YouTube. I'd encourage you to check it out. We're in the process of consolidating a number of the shows that I have been producing and hosting, and bringing those all together into a single stream. You'll see that over the coming weeks. And I'd encourage you to make sure you like and subscribe to the work that we do, because a lot more of it's coming, and it's going to get a lot more exciting and interesting. We're going to give you some different perspectives. We've got a couple of channels coming, including one that talks about small business exclusively, one that talks about operations. And then, of course, what we do here on this show is talk about AI and technology and how it's going to impact the systems and processes in your business. Okay, until next time.
Thanks for listening to The Convergence. If you want more information about the topics you've heard here today, reach out to us at theconvergencepodcast.com.